after we have our grid made, we need to start creating the first pieces of the grid work of the Asa-no-ha panel. And the first one that we're going to do is a diagonal piece across from corner to corner. And you're going to need one for every single square. And there are 16 squares, so we'll need 16 of them. But we need to know how long it is. We need to cut them first before we get the angles on them, and we need to find that length. Now, I have a ruler supplied. It comes in both inches and centimeters. And if you measure across the diagonal, no matter which way you do it on any square, they should be identical. And they're about 2 7/16 of an inch. The actual length of that doesn't make any difference. We just need to be able to duplicate what it is. So you could just take a piece of paper, put the corner of the piece of paper in a corner of the grid, put a line with your pencil at the other corner. So the distance between the edge of the piece of paper and this mark is how long that needs to be. And if I take this here and measure it, it's about 2 7/16. Okay? So again, the length of this doesn't matter what the actual measurement is. We just need to be able to make a piece of wood this length. Okay? So I have it marked on a piece of paper and I know the length. So now we're going to start cutting. Okay. So I used my ruler, but I could have just as easily used a piece of paper to line up my mark with the saw curve. And I want it to be a little bit over. I set this little block with the clamp at 2.5 inches. A little bit big. And then I'm going to take a piece, and you should end up with a zip. If you aren't the first one to use a kit, you should have some small pieces as opposed to the stock that comes with it. Try and use the small pieces first. Okay? So I'm going to put my piece of wood up against the stop block. I'm going to grab my razor saw, pull saw, and I'm just going to cut this piece. Okay. And if I compare it on my piece of paper, it's slightly longer. Great. Now we're going to pair the angles on the ends and get it to the right absolute length with the angles to fit inside the panel. I have put a clamp in the middle of this block on our clamping fixture, and I've clamped it to my little work table. This will clamp to your dining room table. There's felt pads on the bottom of this. It shouldn't damage anything. If you have any concern at all about that, put something else between them. I can't, if you have a really nice dining room table, maybe this isn't the right thing to be doing on it, but this is made to be clamped to a table or your kitchen countertop or something. And angle A is a 45-degree angle, and that's what we're looking for right now. Okay? So I'm going to put it in the clamp block. You'll see that there's screws on both sides, and there's a slot here. That slot is so the screw doesn't get in the way. Okay, so I want my 45-degree angle clear of this clamp block, and then I'm going to pull that forward, and it clamps, and now it's nice and sturdy. I grab my screwdriver. I'm going to loosen this screw just enough for this to move. And unfortunately, it's in a position where this can't get to the right length. So I need to pull the screw. And you're going to have 2 different lengths of 45-degree pieces. So you're probably going to have to move this screw 2 times. Okay, and these screws, you don't have to tighten them to within an inch of their life. It just needs to be snug so that it doesn't move. Okay, and what I like to do is find a nice spot where it's got some tension on it and it doesn't move a lot. There, you got to pull it. So I am going to move this so that I'm just taking off a little bit. Now, how much is that in reality? I don't know. It's a little bit. But I'm going to cut this angle, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to cut that angle. And when it's done, there will be a sharp point here. And that's all you're trying to go for. Okay? Taking off as little as possible. I'm going to hold the chisel with I'm not actually going to use the handle. I hold this chisel with my hand gripped around the steel and my finger just back from that bevel. I've got my hand, this is how I do it. Okay? You have much more control holding onto the chisel this way than if you were to grab a hold of the handle and try and keep the chisel flat on this surface. It is imperative that this flat surface of the chisel remain flat at all times on this block. Okay? So I'm going to push this piece away from me because it's easier for me to keep it tight by pushing away than pulling toward me. And then I'm just going to slide my chisel across that. And now I have a 45-degree angle right there. I'm going to flip it over to the other side. And now I have a point. Let's see if this will focus. It's a perfect 45-45. Okay. Now, I need to double check it against my measure. I'm not measuring anything. I'm taking this angled piece that it now goes right in this corner, and this piece is still longer than what it needs to be, which is good. And I am going to now put those same two angles on the other end. So I haven't moved this stop, I haven't loosened the screw, it's exactly the same way it was. I'm just going to flip it around, I'm going to do the exact same thing, I'm going to push it away from me, I'm going to keep my chisel flat, I'm going to pair across both faces. Now, it isn't to a point, there's a flat spot on it. So, I'm going to loosen the screw just a little bit. And I'm going to move it so that it cuts off just a little bit more, just a hair. And remember, we're only doing one. As soon as we get one to fit, our stop will be in the right position for the exact length that we need, and then we can cut all of them and fit them. So now I have true 90-degree on each end, and I'm going to test fit this off camera, and it's still, it's perfect. And it fits in any of them. I'll do it in this corner, I'll get it up as close as I possibly can. That's how it should fit. It doesn't fall out. If you have to force it, you need to make it a little bit smaller. If it is too loosey-goosey, just keep it, put it in one of the cups as a spare piece. This can become something else. But you want to get this one perfect. If you get this one perfect, it means that the clamp, the pairing block length is perfect, and you can now cut the other 15 pieces because we haven't moved our stop block on our saw, and we can just knock all these out. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to cut 15 pieces, and I'm going to pair the ends on all of them, and they all should fit, and I'm just going to put them in. I have my saw here, and I have, let's see if I can get this closer. I have 3 pieces in here. And notice their orientation. I could have them the other way, but what can happen is they might not all end up being the same length. You need to make sure that all of the pieces that you're cutting, move this a little closer, are tight up against the stop block so that when you cut them, and I'll cut one right now, I'm holding on to all 3. The length, the pieces might fall down, but that's all right. Okay? When you hold them and cut them, you need to make sure that it does not come away from this block, that all 3 pieces are tight up against it. So there's 3. So I'm just going to keep cutting just like that until I have 16. I have 2 little plastic cups. I'll try and put those in the kits. I don't know if I have enough. But these are just recycled yogurt containers. And I put the ones that need to have the ends paired in one, and I have one that has the ends paired in it, so that when one cup is empty, I know that I'm done. And I count as I go. So I'm going to grab one, I'm going to slide it in, push it so that it's on the stop. I'm pushing away from me with my finger, grab my chisel like this, and then I carefully, keeping the chisel flat on the paring block, I push and I pare that material off. I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to hold this. My chisel comes down. I'm going to pare across, flip it over, pare across. So now I have pointed corner both ends. And that goes in the other cup. Let's do another one. The first cut you do is going to be the heaviest. So I go slow, flat on the block, paring cut all the way across. Flip it over, paring cut. Turn it around end for end. Again, it's imperative that you have this chisel perfectly flat on the block. There's another one done. So now do that 16 times. Here's a finished panel for reference, and we need to get the diagonals in, and we need to get them in the right orientation. You can look at this many ways. I look at it like 4 Asa-no-ha patterns. This grid work of 4, this grid work of 4. You can see the center. Diagonals go into the center. Excuse me. So, for reference, we'll put this over the top. I've got this one in this way. I'm going to put this one in this way, and then this way, and then this way. So, we'll put one in here. This might be a little tight. Okay. And probably easier to. It'd be better if this was, the tone wood was a little bit different, but. And I make mine so they fit in there. I don't want to use any glue. So mine aren't loose at all. You gotta, I'm not forcing them in, but they aren't just sliding in. And again, I'm not forcing it. You want those angles to be nice and tight. So if your pieces are just, they're loose, you might try them in a different orientation. Maybe it fits better in a different square. Sometimes there can be just enough of a little bit of variation to be loose in one area and perfect in another. Okay. And also, I put in enough extra for you to make some mistakes. Now, I like it and would appreciate it, and everyone else would too, if you got as many pieces as you could out of the Ziploc bag, which is someone else's remnants. And if you started there, then when you turn the kit in and you have some extra lengths, I might be able to put together some additional kits. Okay, but right now, everyone has some extra pieces so that they have an opportunity to make some mistakes, because that's how you learn. Okay?